Well, next up on the podcast, we have one of our favorites from formerly of ABC 12 WJRT. That's where many of you seen his face the first time. Six-time Emmy Award winner. You can follow him on Twitter at Sloke12. And let's get right to it. Ryan Slocum, welcome to the podcast again. I know you're part of our 3-Point Podcast Prep Pigskin Preview program every year.
Yeah, appreciate that too, guys. I doing that every year for man. It's been a while,
It has.
a couple of years anyway. So no, I appreciate it, man, and good to actually see you guys. I don't ever see you guys when we're doing this.
I know. Well, let me start it off, Ryan. One of the topics we want to get into is a great little documentary you were a part of, Hill versus High, the big rivalry between Arthur Hill and Saginaw High. Tell us a little bit about that, where some of our viewers can catch it, and what was the process?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, I am with the State Champs Network now. I do a number of things for them, but the biggest thing that I do are kind of these mini 30 for 30s that we're doing. And they're on all sorts of high school. It could be anything. It could be just a legend. It could be one player. It could be a team, a legendary team, or it could be a big rivalry. And this is the second rivalry one we have done now. And as you guys know, man, it really doesn't get much better than the Hill versus the High. In our parts anyway, and maybe the entire state in the Midwest, man. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. And it really wasn't much of a process when we started thinking about what we were going to do. It was one of the very first things. It was automatic. And especially with these two schools that they're now going to merge here in a couple of years, or next year, really, after this next season. The Hill and the High are just going to be, I don't even know what they're going to call it, but one Saginaw High School. So, man, it was just an absolute no-brainer to do it. For those hearing this that don't know, Draymond Green, it's been a pretty good week for Saginaw High. Now, Draymond Green is in the NBA Finals again with the Golden State Warriors, 3-time NBA All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time champ. Darvin Ham from the High, former Piston champion, won a title with the Bucks as an assistant last year. Now he is the head coach of the LA Lakers. We talk about those guys in the rivalry. Arthur Hill has a number of big names as well. Jason Richardson, the slam dunk champ, the Michigan State champ in 2000. We talk to him as well. We just go through the whole history, how it started, how old it is. I didn't realize 1903 is when these two teams got going. So 120 years now, they've been going at it. How that started, how the rivalry got going, kind of died down for a while, and now it's back. How it became a rivalry again. And we just kind of go through the years and all the champions and all the great moments. And it's a fun watch. It's not 2 hours long. It's only about 20 minutes long. It moves quick. So you can catch it anywhere, really. Go to YouTube and just type in Saginaw State Champs Rivals. That should get you. Or if you just type in Saginaw Arthur Hill Rivals, it'll come up. It's also on Facebook Watch. You can check it out on there. I believe it's also on Instagram. You can basically anywhere you have an internet or a smart TV, you can find it pretty darn easily.
Basically, if you can't find it, you're not looking hard enough, kind of.
Yeah, that's about right. But yeah, your basic YouTube's, Facebook, it's there.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, Ryan, we were talking before we started recording, and I'm definitely gonna. I've seen some clips of that since I knew you were coming on. I'm definitely gonna sit down and watch that whole thing because that'd be very interesting to watch. But so we talked about your backdrop there behind you.
Oh yeah,
you got the jersey, you got I assume those are WWE title belts.
Those are
They're showing off your
the
six
wing
Emmys.
there, the Intercontinental title. I had to get those in there.
Yeah. And of course, you got to show off the Emmys. Ted mentioned you're a 6-time Emmy winner. I mean, Jared, you're breaking into the TV business. I mean, that's like the Oscar.
I got 0.
If you win an Emmy, that's sitting everywhere you can display it as possible. So I've got to give you. That's a hell of a backdrop. I love that backdrop you got going on.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. And it's coming up actually next week. The Emmys are again coming up next week on the 11th, and we had another documentary from Saginaw, oddly enough, on Terrence Roberson. I don't know if you guys remember him from way back in the day. In his career, in the highs and the lows, he was one of the top 10 players in the country. Kevin Garnett was number 1. He was number 9. And then his career kind of derailed a little bit at the very end. He ended up going to Fresno State, played for Tark. He's their number 2 scorer all time. So he had a nice career. Played 3 games with the Hornets. So he made it. He made it. But his ups and downs, that's nominated for an Emmy next weekend. So, fingers crossed. Maybe we'll get one more in there. But
Lucky
wanted
7.
to plug that. Same thing. If you remember Terrence back in the day, state champs, Terrence Roberson. Look on YouTube, wherever you can find that one there too. That one kind of gets a little tear jerking in there. So try to check that one out as well.
Definitely.
You mentioned very first documentary, the one that's coming out soon here, Saginaw and Arthur Hill. Like you mentioned, the schools are combining. We're kind of in the hotbed with that in the Flint area, seeing all these schools that are, once great schools that are closing down. What's it like for you? I mean, you've been working very closely with these high schools the last, 10 plus years or so. What's that like?
Yeah. I'm old. This is my 20th year doing this.
Wow.
20th year. So
you're saying old at 20. Ted, where are you at?
40. Got a ways to go.
Hey, hopefully we'll get there too, man.
Amen.
It's crazy because not even when I started 10 years ago, you didn't even have 4 Flint high schools. You had 2 Lapeer high schools. I mean, and that were good at a lot of stuff. So yeah, man, we've had all these schools combined. The Flint thing still is crazy though, man, because Northwestern, Southwestern, Central. And Northwestern and Northern, the fact that they have combined and they struggle the way they struggle. Right. Football, if they win 2 games, it's amazing. Basketball, they can't even field a team, and it's just nuts. And girls as well. Girls had to forfeit at least last season. They may have had to forfeit the year before that too. Dude, our girls around here were awesome. Northern's got a million titles. Northwestern has a bunch. I mean, I'm sure Central does too. The fact that they can barely field a team, it's just unbelievable to me, what has happened there. And it's sad. I know times change and whatnot, and people go to other schools now with school of choice. But man, when I talk to some of the younger guys, sportscasters and whatnot in town, and I'm like, oh yeah, he went to Northern, and what's Northern?
Right.
They don't even know. I mean, I don't even know what to say, man. It's nuts. Yeah. It's absolutely nuts. And man, we covered, and a bunch of my friends go to those schools back in the day, and they're not there anymore. I can't. It's got to be weird to not have a high school to cheer for. Come playoff time or whenever.
We talked about it a little bit last week on the evolution or destruction of Flint. We talked about Detroit maybe in a lot better position to make a comeback to Flint. Flint has just fallen on such hard times for many, many reasons, starting with the auto factory shutting down and then the lead water situation. I mean, it's just, and then corruption in local politics, the whole gamut.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously they're bigger, but I'm going to plug another one. The first rivalry that we did was Cass Tech and Detroit King football in Detroit. And obviously they have both still been incredible. They're winning state titles every year still. King just won in Division III this past year, and they have the number 2 quarterback in the country behind a guy named Arch Manning, who's the number 1. Yeah. He's number 2 in the country, Dante Moore. And they talked about
Michigan, right?
He might. Yes, he very well might. But Notre Dame is starting to creep in there a little bit. We'll see what happens now that they have a new coach. But yeah, they were telling me that they weren't always rivals, because Murray Wright and some other schools shut down, Kettering. Now these two are rivals. But it's crazy. And you got to give credit to some of the schools around here. Beecher has still been able to roll, and they're a lot smaller now than they were. But man, what Mike Williams did there was absolutely incredible. He's got 6 titles, and Marquise took him back this past year to the Final Four. But yeah, it's very odd, man. All those rivalries are gone. You know, my mom went to Northern, and she tells me every Thanksgiving walking to the Atwood to go to the game, and like no one would have any idea, man. It's just so weird.
Yeah. I'm a product. Both of my parents went to Flint Southwestern, back in the heyday. Rick Leach, my dad graduated with Rick Leach, and so all those stories. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh man.
Ted,
they
Ted,
were rolling then, man.
Yeah.
Because of Ricky and a couple of, I don't know who was like Moon Wiley there. Ted after that or before that at the same time. I'm
in
not
that
sure,
era. I don't know. I don't remember specifically.
Daryl Turner. I mean, they had some dudes, man.
Just rolling. Kind of along those lines, I wanted to ask you, we're talking about all these high schools kind of shutting down and just how everything's changed in the high school game. What are your thoughts on just like whether it's AAU or these star athletes, maybe like an Imani Bates, leaving their public high school and going to prep schools, or even leaving the state, like Miles Bridges and some of these other guys just straight up leaving the state because the MHSAA is a little more restricted on what you can do, in your high school sports. So do you think it's kind of hurting? Because you look at Imani Bates right now, he's kind of struggling. He's actually dropped, in his draft stock for the NBA. Do you think that's a problem? Do you think guys should just stick at their public high school and play it out? Or where do you kind of stand on that?
Man, it's, everybody's got a different situation. So you got to look at that first. You got to look at your home life. You got to look at what's best for you. Our kids around here, I know like from experience, so I can personally tell you what happened to some of our kids around here. We'll start with Monte Morris, who did not have to leave. He was here. Didn't want to leave, didn't have to leave, and he had a good situation at home. And he turned out fine. He started all year for the Nuggets. If he didn't start, man, he would probably be up for a 6th man of the year. So he turned out fine. He didn't have to go anywhere. And, he gets looked at. He played for the Michigan Mustangs. They won the Peach Jam. He didn't need to go anywhere, Other guys, it's a little different. Kyle Kuzma is a kid that bounced around to a couple of different high schools. He did not have the greatest home situation. He was at Bentley. I think he was doing okay, but like, I'll be honest with you, we never covered Bentley games ever. And he left after his sophomore year. He grew a lot, but he ended up going to a prep school. And next thing you know, he's a 4-star. So it worked out. He maybe needed to go, and it worked out great. Miles is a situation where his mom wanted him to get out of Flint. And it obviously worked out fine with the way that went. But, so you don't really know. And there were rumors that he wanted to come home. He was either going to go to Carmen Ainsworth or go to Powers his senior year. And what I was told was, no, you're doing fine where you're at. You stay there. So, I mean, everything's different. I think some of these kids like Imani. Why? You were already the number 1 player in the country. Like, you didn't need to go. Like, he didn't have to.
Right.
And I don't know him, but I've heard from people who are around his family and whatnot, and the people around him, maybe not the greatest advice in the world. I don't know personally. That's just what you hear. But he was already number 1. Everybody said he was like Kevin Durant. So like, why do you want a state title already? Now, here's the interesting thing though. Our last great kid who is left is Ty Rogers from Grand Blanc. He was a top 50 kid in the country. He is a finalist, Final 13 to make Team USA. That just got announced yesterday. Wow. So they're having one more guy cut. We'll see, who it's going to be, but he's going to Illinois, and he left. Shockingly, he left during the school year to go to a school just outside of Chicago. Now, why would you leave during the school year? A new thing called NIL.
Yeah.
So he can go to Chicago. He can get his name out there already. Hey, I'm going to Illinois. I'm that guy. Hello. Hey, check me out. Oh, yeah. So now he's already got a name around there. So when he goes to Illinois, here's a couple bucks. He's going to be. So there's a financial thing there now.
Yeah.
legally a financial thing there now.
Yeah, right.
So that's a whole new ball game, man. We may be seeing some of that because Ty, why would he leave?
Yeah,
He already had every school on earth. He had a state championship team coming back. They made the finals without him. Imagine if he were there. So, like, it's because I don't know that either, but I'm putting 2 and 2 together. He was going to make a name for himself in Chicago.
Makes
so,
sense.
Look out for that too. It's weird. Weird times, man.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely changed the game, NIL, in a good way. And, it's changed it in a bad way sometimes too. We saw the Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher going back.
Oh, man. How crazy is that, man?
Yeah.
Oh, what did Saban say yesterday? Oh, I didn't say his name. I didn't go. I like Jimbo.
He said, I didn't say anyone broke the rules.
That's when there's some real dirt that Jimbo has on him. But judging by his reaction, you knew that there's something going on behind the scenes there.
Man.
This is a little bit of a loaded question, but I mean, you've been doing this for 20 years, right in this region. You've seen a lot of great coaches, a lot of great players. But do you think that there's almost like a slight decline, both in coaching and in player talent, over the course of the last 20 years that you've noticed? You don't have to name any specific players or specific teams or anything like that, but have you noticed kind of a decline in just overall play? Let's use basketball for an example.
Yeah, I mean, and it's tough to say that because we did have 2 teams at the Breslin again this past year from Grand Blanc, and Beecher made it. Grand Blanc made it, and I think they both have very good, 2 great, if not great, coaches at their place. But overall, around the entire area, probably, and I think there's not as much top tier talent. Like, because look, we got 4 kids from Flint right now in the NBA, and we have 1 kid from Saginaw who's in the championship again. So, like, as far as basketball goes, I mean, we still have guys, but we're not pumping out as many D1 guys as, your parents, Matt and Ted, you covered, like, those Flint teams had how many D1 players a piece? I mean,
phenomenal.
It was incredible. So I don't think we have that. And that could just be a problem, maybe not even at the varsity level, like going down through the ages, going down, like, because the youth programs aren't the same in the city that they used to be. Baseball, dude, come on, out of Flint, we were pumping out baseball players. There's no youth programs, or there wasn't for years. And so I think it starts even below the varsity level. You got to go real deep, and it starts at the beginning. These kids aren't learning the right way to do things from the beginning, So that it's tough. It's tough. We do have good. We do have some talent. We do in top tier, but it's just not as much.
And do you think partially, obviously coaching's a big thing that deals with that, but one of the great videos I saw recently, it was a couple minute video of Lou Dawkins basically explaining why he benched one of his star players for a big time game. Draymond Green actually reposted it.
And I appreciate that, Day. I got like 30,000 hits on that video. Thank you.
No, it's awesome. So do you think that that sort of style of coaching just doesn't fly that much anymore? I mean, you're inside these huddles and you see these locker room type stuff. Is it just a different type of style nowadays?
Yeah, and it depends on where you're at too. I shot that video. That was in 2009, the 9-10 season. I have no clue why Day did that either. All of a sudden, I just see that he tweeted this video. I'm like, how did you even find that? Well, thank you. Yeah, he was ticked that day, man. And that team had numerous Division I players. Tommy McCune was their best player, the kid he got mad at.
Yeah.
Because he showed up. And the funny thing is, he apparently showed up 5 minutes early to practice, but he was late. Yeah, he was only 5 minutes early.
Yeah, Bobby Knight rule.
Yeah, so we got benched, 3 of them. And they lost to, I think it was Ann Arbor or Green Hills. I can't remember now. It's so long ago. Huron, maybe. Either one. He went off in the locker room. And I don't know if he did it because cameras were there, but Lou, he is there to do more than just teach you basketball. He's there to teach you life. And Mike Williams was much like that too.
Yeah.
If you've seen any of my Beecher videos that we did through the years, man, he gets into dudes if you don't do it right. And I don't know if you can get away with that everywhere. I think certain places you can, certain places you can't. So it is still there.
Yeah,
But
right,
I don't
right.
know, and I see it, man. I see it with the Davison football team,
Right.
and look what they've done the last few years. Obviously, this past year weren't as good as the 2 years before, but they went to the state championship 2 years in a row and won a state title. And man, Jake Weingartz will get into you. He will get into you. He's got that old school in him, man. He'll get into you. So,
Yeah.
and some kids can't take that either. You
Yeah.
got to know your kids. So
Yeah.
it's there. It is there. But I don't know if I don't know. I'm from Flushing. I don't know if they would take that at Flushing.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe they would. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
the
know.
old school guy, and I think the tough love has disappeared a little bit. But the Dawkins video, I mean, it brought me back. I mean, it's your coach, kind of an extension of your parents, trying to set you on the right path. And it was hard, but it was a lesson learned, I'm sure. I want to move on to a little bit more about your career, Ryan. I mean,
Yeah.
you got the 6 Emmys there. I could show my multiple Gus Macker trophies, but I won't right now.
The
I
toilet
would take
bowl.
one.
It's all
I might
toilet
trade
bowls.
you. I might trade you for one.
But being the elderly guy here, I go back to TV 12 with Ed Phelps. I'm not sure who was even the sports guy before then. You being the Flushing kid, I'm sure
Yeah.
Ed Phelps was the guy back in your day, right?
Yeah.
You went
He's
from
why
Ed-
I have these. He's why I have. Yeah.
he was the inspiration, I'm assuming, and you go from Ed Phelps to Reese Davis, who moved on obviously to a huge career at ESPN. I still remember his Reese's Pieces. And of course, we enjoyed all your work there at ABC 12 and now at State Champs. Tell us a little bit about the progression. I mean, you left Channel 12 for a reason. You don't have to get into any specifics, but how'd you like the transition to where you're at now?
Well, man, so when I left, and Ed Phelps, by the way, I interned with Ed Phelps,
Mm-hmm.
and then he hired me for my very first part. It was part-time when I first started there, and then I was there till he retired, and then became the weekend anchor, and then became the sports director there.
Mm-hmm.
I like what I'm doing, so I started doing that piece you're talking about with Lou Dawkins from Saginaw High going nuts in the locker room. I did like a running weekly documentary series on Lou's team, because they had a state title team. His son was actually the same age as Monte Morris is now, and Kyle Kuzma. He was, and apparently they do this, the number 1 ranked 8th grader in the nation. And he was at an AAU tournament, and they were playing like their 4th game of the day at Michigan State. It was the Izzo shootout. And he had a heart defect they didn't know about, and he dropped dead right on the court. And Lou said, hey, man, you want to do a story? I'll do anything you want. And we did a story on his son, and Dorian was his name. And it turned into a running documentary where every week I was like, hey, here's what happened this week. And it'd be like maybe 5 minutes, which in local TV is unheard of, man. And it went for, I don't know what it was, 8, 9, 10 weeks till the end of the season. Well, then I did the same exact thing with Monte's team a couple of years later. And that's what a couple of these are from, because they just had some amazing stories on their team. And I'm just like, after doing this for so long, you don't get bored, but I got bored. And I wanted to do more stuff like that, like stuff that impacts people, stuff that's like telling real stories, not just like, hey, another Tiger pitcher is dead. Like,
Right.
I mean, how many is that? Like, do any of them have arms left? They're all dead. You get, I don't know, it gets monotonous, and
Right.
just wanted to do more and more and more of that. Also, like some play-by-play and different things. And I was offered that opportunity here. It's awesome. I work at home. I basically do whatever I want. Now, COVID changed some things because I left right before COVID, and then they shut all of high school down,
Right.
So it was a little tough there when I'm like, did I do the worst thing ever? Like, what am I doing? But we're, everything's back up and running now, man. And it's awesome. And you get to tell these great stories like Terrence. So Terrence is going with me to the Emmys next weekend. And he's like, you would think he's back in the state championship, man. He is so freaking excited. It's unbelievable. And to see that, and he's older than I am, he's 45 years old or whatever. He's played basketball all over the country. He played in the NBA. And here he is, like, geeked like a little kid. And to be able to do things like that, man, that's tough to beat. It's tough to beat, man. So it's very cool. And we're going to keep doing it, man. There are so many, as you guys know, man, there's so many high school stories to tell around here. And people love seeing that old video because it probably is something. Ed Phelps, you hear him on the Hill High documentary and you hear Art Neal. And you hear these guys, from Channel 5. So you hear these guys and people, it's clips people haven't seen in 25 years, 30 years. So they're, I remember that. I was at that game. So, man, doing that kind of stuff is awesome, man.
No, for me, it was, I graduated high school in 2003. So it was like if Ed Phelps read your highlight on ABC 12 on Friday night, it was like you made it. It was like Stuart Scott was reading your highlights or something like that. But
and you know what, then that's what we tried to do. And I love doing that too, man, because, how many 99.9% of these kids are not going to hear anybody else call their highlights. So you got to make it Friday night seem like it is Stuart Scott doing it. You got to make it seem like that. And that's exactly, I tell every young kid or classroom I talk to, I'm like, that was my goal. I'm glad you said that, man.
Was it hard for you to leave ABC 12? I mean, because my whole childhood, basically Matt's growing up through high school, all that sort of thing. They know you as kind of the, the highlight guy. You see him all the time, on the sidelines and all that sort of thing. I mean, after 20 years of doing it, was it hard to kind of put that hat aside, I guess, and maybe covering more of this bigger picture type stuff?
Well, I wish I would have done it sooner, to be honest.
Right.
Like, it was hard because this is home. Yeah. And, like you said, like there's something cool about being the new Ed Phelps.
I mean, around here, 100%.
Yeah. Like I ain't gonna lie to you. It's cool when people when you see them and they say exactly what you guys just said about Ed. And it's awesome, but, I wanted to do something else, man. Like I was not happy anymore. It was time to try something else. And you know what, man, I can go back. I do miss a lot of stuff. I do miss, Michigan, Ohio State games. And I miss the rush of a Friday night when a game goes to overtime and you got to fly 100 miles an hour back to the station and get
that tape on.
12 games cut in, boom, boom, boom. And then you're rushing on the air. Is my tie straight? I don't have a script for this one. I'm just winging it. Like that's fun. That is fun. I love doing that.
No, that's the stuff that's fun. Jared started at Fox 17 over in Grand Rapids also. Yeah. That's where I got my TV. That's where I started my TV career. I was there for 3 years. Yeah, over in Grand Rapids. And I was working. I was mostly in news, but I did do sports, especially on Friday nights. They needed all hands on deck for Friday nights.
Yeah, you guys did like 45 minutes or something, didn't you?
Yeah, we would do the Friday night or the Fox 17 Blitz.
The Blitz,
a 45-minute show. It was pretty unheard of, for a local news to get that much time for high school football. But that's what I always tell people. I mean, it, Jared, Ted, you've probably heard it in your long career. Local news gets a bad rap. Like people always like, if you want to work in TV, they're like, local news. You don't want to do local news. Personally, I love working. Yeah. I was only there for 3 years. So maybe, I hadn't gotten bitter yet, but I got the opportunity to go to ESPN. So that was hard to turn down.
Yeah.
But exactly what you're talking about. That's the best thing. Jared, you're at Bally. You're doing all those cool high school football stories. Ted, I mean, you get to cover so many cool local teams and go to Ford Field and talk about all these legendary coaches and teams. That stuff just is going to live forever. I mean, that's what's cool about the local news stuff. I mean, those stories, whether it's Kelvin Torbert or all these other ones you've done. Yeah. That's the stuff that people love. I mean, people are going to eat that stuff up. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, like I said, man, at some point you just want to kind of make a difference. And that's what I tried to do. But at some point you need to try something else, challenge
Right.
yourself a little more, because it did get to the point where I like kind of felt like I was sleepwalking a little bit. So it was time to do something else. But no, you're absolutely right. And the behind the scenes in local news is what has changed. It's still the same on the air, but you look around at some of the stations just in our area. You used to have 3 sports people at Channel 12. You used to have 3 at Channel 5. You had 2 at least, and maybe a part-time person, 2 at Channel 25. Well, Jonathan at Channel 25 just left because he's been by himself for 2 years.
Crazy.
Wow.
One guy, a one-man crew. And
that's like the definition of one-man band.
it is. It really is. One-man band to a T, literally. Channel 5 has been down to 2 people now for quite a while. And they used to have a camera guy, too, that was specifically sports. When he left, they didn't replace him. And, Channel 12 is down to 2 people right now as well. It's just not the same. We used to get help Friday night, man. We would have the 3 of us sports people. Then we had 2 freelance sports cameramen, photogs, we call them. They'd come in only on Friday night. I don't know what they paid them, $15 a day or so. I don't know what it was, $15 an hour, I should say. And they'd come in and just shoot that. Then we would get 3 or 4 from the news department that would shoot a game or 2 for us. So we would get 12 games, 15 games. And now there's no help from news. There's only 2 sports guys. In Jonathan's case, at 25, one sports guy. Ever since the economy crashed in whatever it was, 08, 09, money is not the same. It is not the same anymore. And, they're probably hiring people for, maybe half, crazy. Of what they used to. So, it's different. Now, if you're like in LA and doing local news, but is that really local news? I don't know. Is that really, if you're in a big city, but the economics and like just the way it's built is not the same in local anymore. And that's stressful, especially if you're used to it being a different way. It was definitely stressful.
Yeah.
So like you said, it's crazy. I remember when I was working at Fox 17, Jason Hutton is the sports reporter there.
Yeah.
And I've been in the business now for 4 years, and I still think he's the hardest worker I've ever seen. Man, there's a lot of stuff that goes into these anchors' lives. Like you said, they're doing all their own stuff, shooting all their own stuff. Now you got the social media side of everything. So basically everything that you would normally just do for TV, now you're doing it on all these different social media platforms as well.
Posting all the video online.
But like you said, how different it was that you were doing these kind of behind the scenes type shoots, with Beecher and with Saginaw. My brother actually sent one of your things to me not long ago and said, basically, what's stopping you from doing this type of thing? So when you're following these teams, for an extended amount of time, what's kind of your role? Are you basically, your job is just to act like as if I'm not here? Are you pulling people aside, interviewing them as well? Are you, what does your week look like? Or at least the amount of time you're with these teams? What does that look like?
So for those 2 things, and I'm with them as much as I humanly possibly can be. So luckily, both those teams were really good, especially in the Beecher case where they were coming off an undefeated state championship season. So I'm at every single game, every game, unless it's in Benton Harbor or something. I'm there. And if it wasn't Benton Harbor on a Saturday, I would go. But like Friday night, that's not feasible. But I'm with them at every game I possibly can be. I might do a certain story on a kid. And so I hit them up. Hey, coming to practice today. Let me get this guy. Okay, no problem. I've been in their homes, numerous ones. Is it okay? Can I come to your house?
Right.
Some kids that have had like tragedy happen to them. Oh yeah, no problem. You name it. And I did everything on those. I shot it. I did the interviews. I edited them, everything. Wrote it, like everything. So, and that's what I do now. Like I'm my own cameraman. I'm my own lighting man. I'm my own editor. So that's what I do now. Now And then what I'll do is I'll turn it in and I'll say, hey, what do you think? And they'll say, that's great. Or they'll take this out, switch that around kind of thing. And then we go with it. But no, I mean, I pretty much do everything.
Awesome.
And I'm with them as much as I possibly can be. So this last one, the hill and the high, we shot that last summer for the most part. So it was pretty easy with the interviews and everything, lining things up. And then I had a couple of older coaches, like Jay Rich's coach got me, Jay Rich. And I went up, he lives in Oscoda, right on Lake Huron. Place really sucks. A big dump, total dump. And I had to go up there for that. And he got me Jay Rich, and we did like a Skype interview with him because he lives in Vegas. But that was easy. Getting the footage is hard, man. Yeah. And that's another part. Like, I used to be able to get footage. Now all these companies, they're like, yeah, for 10 seconds, we want $500.
Good God.
How about no? Do you have any pictures? Like,
yeah.
Like, give me a black and white.
Yeah, right. So, you know, luckily I know people around here. It's a lot easier around here to get stuff. But nah, man, just you're around it as much as you can and as much as you need to be. And if you need more, call them, text them back. Hey, man, you got anything else? Hey, can I talk to you again? That's
well, you know, we've talked about it before, Ryan, and all three of us, four of us actually in the industry. It's all about the hustle. You got to hustle. You got to make it work. You know, got to figure it out. And obviously you have. It's paid off very, very well for you with the awards and now where you're at. You know, before we sign off, I definitely want to thank you for joining us. This has been enlightening, and definitely look forward to you joining us again. Tell us the best spot for people to follow you, and you know what State Champs is all about. Just give a little plug for yourself here.
Yeah,
as we
man.
sign off.
You did a great job at the beginning, but as far as I go, the best place is at SLOC12 on Twitter. That's the best place. I'm checking that all the time. Facebook's just Ryan Slocum. I don't check that as much, so sorry if I have an inbox full. I don't check that as much. But State Champs, man. So what we're trying to do, you know, they started in Detroit about 20 years ago also, because Detroit doesn't cover high school sports barely at all, you know, really.
Crazy.
There was a need for it. They don't do what Grand Rapids does, like you guys mentioned. Man, you get 45 minutes. Flint, they do about 15 minutes on a Friday night. You're lucky if you get one game on a Friday night in Detroit. So there was a need for it. And Fred McLeod actually started State Champs, the former Piston announcer and worked at Channel 4. He actually started it back in the day along with Lauren Plant, who took it over. But, you know, it was just to fill that need. These kids that weren't getting exposure, these kids that, you know, people like this stuff. So that's where it started. And now it's expanded. It was mostly, you know, just Detroit area. Throughout the years, it expanded a little bit more. I was freelancing with them for a little bit, doing some Flint stuff on a Friday night. And now we're everywhere. We got guys in Traverse. We got guys in Marquette. We got guys in Grand Rapids. I'm in Flint, Saginaw Bay City, the Thumb. And we're just trying to get it out there for these kids, giving them what they deserve. And people want to see it. I mean, how many people's grandma and grandpa are in who knows where?
Right.
Well, they got a Facebook page. Now they can see it. So that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to tell stories as well. I got one on Flushing pitcher coming out here in the next couple of days. Name's Malachi Edwards. I don't know if you heard about this story, but he got hit on in a football game against Powers, first game of the year, his senior year.
Oh yeah.
His leg got mangled and they thought they were going to amputate it. And they tried some surgery, ended up working, but he didn't walk for like 3 or 4 months. And he's finally up and around a little bit. He's got a long way to go, but he actually pitched the first inning the other day. And then they let him hit leadoff, and he got a hit. And he didn't get down to first too quick, but he made it, man. So that story is going to come out and his journey and everything, man. So that's what we're trying to do, stuff like that. And,
I mean, like you said, that those stories are what people around the country want to see.
Yeah.
You don't care in May. We don't care like what Michigan's recruiting class is looking like for 2024
Right.
or whatever. You know,
Right.
like I mean, some people
We
do,
do,
but no,
but-
those are the stories that really hit home.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? And other people are doing those stories.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're trying to do it, and it's on the internet, so we can take as long as we want to do it.
Yep.
And that's why we're allowed to do these mini 30 for 30 docs.
Yeah.
And nobody else is doing it. So that's what we're doing, man. So statechampsnetwork.com. There's a bunch of podcasts and stuff that I have nothing to do with, but they're there. There's all the highlights. We got rankings, we got articles, you name it, man. Everything's there. And then State Champs Mish on Twitter, State Champs Mish on Facebook, Instagram. You know, there you go.
Well, we love what you're doing, Ryan, and we'll definitely be talking with you again in our Prep Pigskin preview show.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll check in with you before then. But keep up the good work. We always enjoy what you got out there.
Oh, you guys too, man. This has been awesome. As always, man, football's right around the corner,
That's
right?
right.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Thanks again, Ryan.
All right, take care, guys.